So a subscriber asked if we can draft a straight fitted long gown without half cut on the waist area. That's like the waistline joining you usually see. And yes, it's very much possible. So I'll be showing you how to do that with a bustier pattern, and there's also a neckline trick in this video. This is something you would definitely like. So kindly watch this video to the end and let's get straight into the video. So you're going to get your pattern paper ready, and here I already have the shoulder line, the bust point line, the under bust line, the waistline, the hip line, and then the gown line length. The length is the only issue here. You have to make yours long. Okay, so on the shoulder line, I'm going to divide the shoulder measurement by 2. Then I'll be going down to the chest line. On the chest line, I'm going to measure the shoulder measurement divided by 2 again. Then I'm going to mark the shoulder line and also the chest line out this way. Now I'm going to mark 3 inches here so that I can slope the shoulder. Then I'll come here and come down by 1.5 for the shoulder slope. Now I'm going to slant it to meet the 3 inches I'm using as the neckline width yet. Okay. The next thing now is to measure this line and divide it into 2 equal halves. You can decide to just like fold your tape this way, or you just divide it into 2 equal halves. Then on that point I'll be going in by 1/2 inch. Now I'm going to slant it to the shoulder tip this way. Then come to the chest line and divide the bust circumference by 4 plus extra 1/2 inch. Okay, the bust measurement divided by 4 plus extra 1/2 inch. And now I'm going to use this curve to curve the armhole this way. The next thing I'll do now is to get the bust span on the bust point line and also on the hip line. The nipple to nipple divided by 2, you're going to mark yours on the bust point line and also on the hip line. Then you're going to connect the 2 points to make a straight line. Now, coming to the waistline, on both sides of this line now, I'll be marking 1/2 inch. That's 0.5 on both sides. Now, this is one of the disadvantages of this particular pattern. So if you're a slim person and you don't have a big lower abdomen, you can only do 25% tightening on the waistline or 50% tightening. Otherwise, you're going to create excess allowance here, which you do not want. It's going to affect the fitting, and it's no longer going to be as fitted as you want it. So if you're trying to create a space for your lower region, you can as well do 0.75 or 1 inch on both sides of the bust span line. That way you're creating excess allowance for your lower region so that it will sit well without it bulging out. But if you're a slim person and you have a flat tummy, you can only do 1/2 inch on both sides or 0.25. Anything more than that, you're going to create excess on the down part. Do you understand that? So now I'm going to the under bust. I'm going to mark 0.625 going to the center. Then I'll place my 1.75 on it and then mark it on the other side. Do you understand? So I use 1.75 to tighten the under bust and then 1 inch as the waist dart. Then I'm going to connect it this way from the waist dart to the under bust. Then from the other under bust, I'm going to curve it to the bust point this way. Now I'm going to start from the waistline and go down to 6 inches. If you're a slim person, you can do this, but okay, let's forget the slim person. So the slimmer your lower region is, like your lower abdomen, the more you're going down there. So 6 inches works for most adults. Now I'm going to divide the waist circumference by 4 on the waistline. Then I'll add the 1 inch that allowance. I'll go to the hip line and divide the hip circumference by 4. There is no dart intake there, so I'm not replacing any dart intake. Now whatever it is I have on the hip line, I'm going to mark the exact thing on the knee or the gown length. Then I'm going to come in 1.5. That's just the easiest way to go about it. So you can do 2 inches or more depending on how pencil you want it to be. But basically whatever you have on your hip line, you're going to minus from it and do that on the gown length or your knee. Then you take it from the knee all the way down for the pencil skirt. Do you understand that? So for me now, minusing 1.5 from what I have on the hip line gives me 8.25. So I have 8.25 on the gown length. So now I'll come down here by 1.5 because that's the difference between my front length and the back length. Then I'm going to slant it to the bust span this way. So we are basically done with the down part. Let's talk about the upper part. I'll go up here by 3.5 for the over bust line. Okay, from the bust point 3.5 up. Whatever is your over bust line, you're going to get it at this point from your bust point up. Then I'm going to measure the shoulder slope. This line here, I'll measure it and then divide this into 2 equal halves. Then I'm going to connect from that point to the bust span, as you can see me do it here. The next thing now is to tighten the over bust, and I'm going to do 1.5. That's 0.75 from both sides of this line that went across the shoulder slope. Do you understand that? So I did 0.75 on both sides, which is 1.5. Then I'm using my curve and placing it this exact way you're seeing me do it to connect from the bust point up. So now you're going to measure what you have here to here. Okay, measuring that I have 2 inches. I'll write it down because I will need it later. Okay, now I use 1.5 to tighten the over bust. I'm going to take one of it, which is 0.75. Then I'm going to come to this side and replace it. Okay, the 0.75. Then you're going to place your curve this way, and then you're going to curve the armhole out again like this. It's likely not to touch what you marked, but at least you should have something that looks nice like this. It should be close to it. Okay, now I'm going to do 5 inches here as the neck width. Then I'll come down to 6.5. I'll be maintaining the over bust line as the depth, neckline depth for this front. Okay, so 5 inches as the neck width, then 6.5 as the neck depth. Now, because this neckline is going to gape if we do not tighten it, I'm going to use 0.75 to tighten the neckline. I have 5 inches as the neck width here. What I'm going to do is to measure 5 inches here, and then since I have 1.5 here as the over bust tightening, and I want to take just 0.75 as the neck tightening, what I'm going to do is to add extra 0.75 to 5 inches we are using as the neck width on this part. Do you understand that? So I want to use just 0.75, but I'm not saying you should use 0.75. You are simply going to follow this method and calculate it well. What I did here now is 5.75 as the neck width on this part. You understand? This way you just use 0.75 to tighten the neckline, because if you use the whole of 1.5, it's going to like drag the neckline and it's not going to look nice. Okay, the next thing now is to measure the dart legs, and then the shorter one I'm going to make it up to meet the one I have as the longer one. Then you see how I connected the neckline this way. So we are going for this blue line. Okay, and this way you just tighten the neckline well. And now if you measure this part now, I have the exact 2 inches I measured earlier, which means that I'm on the right track. This is not going to gape and the neckline is well tightened. So yeah, now we have the shoulder slope. Now you are supposed to also tighten this part, yeah, this line here, but because of how we did the shoulder slope, the 3 inches we used to slope the shoulder, it already helped to tighten the neckline. This is the exact reason why I slope my shoulder that way. I use just 3 inches to slope it. So the wider the neckline I'm going for, the more it helps me tighten the neckline. Yeah, so that basically it. I'm going to cut this out now, but before doing that I'm going to blend in the hip line as you can see me do it, and then we are going to cut it out. So to cut this, you're going to open up the dart all the way to the hip line so that you can be able to close the bust dart. So I will open it all the way to the hip line, then fold in the bust dart, the dart leg this way, and then place it on the bust point line as you can see me do it. So I'll try to like fold in the paper to create a crease line. Then I will apply my water glue as you can see me do it here. Then I'll go ahead and place it back on the bust point line this way. The next thing I'll do now is to go ahead and blend in the side line, because you can see that it is now distorted, and then we are going to continue cutting out. So you're simply going to cut the dart all the way to where it stops, then you cut the neckline and cut the dart on this other side all the way to where it stops, then you cut the side, the armhole, the shoulder slope, and it's ready. So when you want to transfer this to the fabric, it's likely to give you a hard time trying to add your allowance. You can decide to open up the darts more. You only add an allowance to where you want your dart to stop, and then you stop adding the allowance. Okay, but again, if it will give you much hard time, you can decide not to add allowance on the bust point. You only add in between the dart. That's like from the bust point down, then from the bust point up. It will be easier for you that way. Now let's talk about the back. I already created this space. I have the waistline, the hip line, then the zipper allowance. I'll start from now from the center back line, then divide the shoulder measurement by 2 on the shoulder line and go down to the chest line. On that point again, I'm going to divide the shoulder by 2 and mark it. Now I'm going to use my ruler to mark this out. The next thing now is to also come in here by 3 inches so we can slope the shoulder. Then I will be coming down here by 1 inch, and then I'm going to slant the shoulder this way to meet the 3 inches. The next thing I'll be doing now is to come to the waistline, and I will be coming in by ½ inch to contour the center back because it's not straight. I'm doing ½ inch because I'll be doing that on this back pattern. So I'm going to place my curve as you can see me do it here, and then I'm going to curve this up, and now the center back is contoured. I'll place this curve again this way and then contour this to the hip line as you can see me do it. So the measurement now will start from this new center back contour line. Now I'm going to start there on the chest line and divide the bust circumference by 4. Then I'm now going to start from that point and curve the armhole this way. Now I'll come to the waistline. From this center back contour line, I'll be coming in by my 3.75, which I'm using as the bust span, 3.5 rather. Then I'll be going up 6 inches from the waistline and 6 inches down. Now measuring from the actual center back line to that point, I have 4 inches. I'll mark the same thing on the 6 inches up and also on the 6 inches down, just to have a straight line to take in the dart. Then now I'm going to connect it as you can see me do it. Now on both sides of this line, now on the waistline I'll be marking ½ inch, 0.5 on both sides of the line. Then I'm going to mark it out this way, slant it to the 6 inches we have up and down, and the dart is ready. I'll start from the center back contour line and divide the waist circumference by 4 plus the 1 inch dart intake. Okay, I'll come to the hip and divide the hip circumference by 4, and then I'm going to mark my 8.25 on the gown length, which we used on the gown length for the front too. Now I'm going to connect this measurement to give us the shape that you're going for.
I don't wanna hear her say, I don't wanna hear her say you there with another man. The way your body rotate, I don't go like
So this guy stopped recording. But yeah, what I did there is 5 inches we are using as the neck width, and then 6 inches down for the neck depth for the back. Then here 5 inches again. Then I'm going to mark the square line. I want to maintain the same neckline design I'm going for the front. Okay, I have on the front, yeah. Now to tighten it, I'm going to start from the center back contour line and come in ½ inch. Okay, ½ inch from the center back contour line. You can do 0.75, you can do 1 inch. If you know how much your neckline gapes at the back, so go ahead and tighten it as much as you know it usually gape. But yeah, ½ inch works just fine for me. And now I'm going to follow that this new blue line and add my zipper allowance of 1 inch, then connect it this way. And then what I have on the gown length is just ½ inch. I'll just connect it from the hip line down to the gown length, then cut it out this way, and that's basically it for this particular tutorial. So yeah, now we have the back pattern. So for this back pattern now, you don't need to cut the dart. You only pin it down like this on your fabric. Then you can decide to use your pin to trace it out, like trace the dart out on your fabric. Then you go ahead and sew it. But yeah, you don't need to cut it. You can also decide to fold it like this with your fabric. Then you iron it to create a crease line. That's like the dart line, and then on the waistline you're going to add your dart intake. Then I already said how you're going to add your allowance on the front pattern. So yeah, go ahead and follow all these steps and you're going to have a very good fit. And with this, you've come to the end of this tutorial. Do let me know what you think in the comments and I'll see you on my next one. Bye bye.